Good afternoon. My name is Terry Almanza. I'm a retired veteran of the Chicago Police Department. Sadly, I am also a grieving mom. On May 31st, 2015, my husband and I suffered the indescribable pain of losing our daughter, Sydney. She was 18 years old, a standout athlete, the recipient of collegiate scholarship, and loved beyond measure. Sydney was poisoned after ingesting a lethal amount of MDMA, which is most commonly known as ecstasy or Molly. MDMA first became popular in the nightclub scenes at raves and musical festivals. People often glamorize this illicit narcotic as a party drug, but fail to mention how lethal MDMA can be. I've been doing this for 6 years and it never gets easier. Toxicologists reported that Sydney suffered a horrific death. As her body temperatures elevated, her body seized, her lungs filled with fluid as she gasped for air until her precious heart stopped beating. Sydney died frightened and alone. At the ages of 3 and 4, Sydney was the victim of repeated sexual assaults by her 35-year-old cousin, just months after her biological mother, Sherry, lost her battle to pancreatic cancer. Sydney, like so many other victims, carried her pain silently until the trauma surfaced in other ways. Sydney's grades began to decline. The lack of interest in playing volleyball ceased. She began self-isolating, self-harming, and developed an eating disorder. Years of counseling followed an outpatient therapy, but Sydney always conveyed that a person cannot heal from that type of trauma endured as a child. Statistics warn that children sexually assaulted are 26 times more likely to abuse drugs, also as a way to escape their pain. Being a law enforcement officer, I knew what took place was criminal and warranted a criminal investigation. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office ruled Sydney's death as accidental. The Chicago Police Department classified Sydney's case as non-criminal and closed it without any investigation. I knew the identity of the persons responsible for peddling poison to Sydney, but detectives repeatedly conveyed that Sydney made a choice. Sydney never made a choice to die. Chicago police detectives further conveyed that there was no current protocol to investigate these deaths criminally. I continued to state, why can't Sydney's be the first? As of May 31st, 2015, 5,151 additional lives have been lost to opioid poisonings just in Chicago alone. And only 3 cases have resulted in a drug-induced homicide conviction. That is unacceptable. As a law enforcement officer, I know that we must aggressively combat these illicit narcotics and address the growing flow of the fentanyl epidemic plaguing the United States. We will not be silenced. In 2015, my advocacy for the countless forgotten victims began, and the drug-induced homicide organization was founded. I educated myself as to the 1989 Illinois criminal statute of drug-induced homicide, which is simply defined as the unlawful delivery of a controlled substance resulting in a death. Simple. No money exchange, no force. I shared my loss publicly, risking disciplinary action by the Chicago Police Department after media interviews were denied, citing that the interview would compromise my daughter's case. What case? It was closed. I networked with other grieving families and contacted the state's attorney's office from neighboring counties in which their cases were successfully prosecuted, and as a result, the number of fatalities had declined. My prayers were finally answered 16 months after Sydney's homicide when the detectives interviewed the suspected drug dealers. Both dealers confessed to distributing pure and potent MDMA to my daughter, who they referred to as an inexperienced user. Both dealers were charged with drug-induced homicide and released out on bond while awaiting trial. Shortly thereafter, both defendants were arrested again after selling 110 hits of LSD and a gram of MDMA to an undercover officer, proof that even despite a homicide indictment, drug dealers do not stop. In 2018, both Brent Tyson and Cynthia Parker were convicted of the homicide of my daughter. None of this will bring back Sydney. But I am confident that the enforcement of the drug-induced homicide statute will save lives, sending a clear and unmistakable message to drug dealers that if you choose to profit from the misery and the suffering of others, that our judicial system will pursue you. And should the unthinkable tragedy of a fatal drug toxicity death occur, fatal drug toxicity death occur because of your unlawful delivery, expect law enforcement at your doorstep with an arrest warrant for drug-induced homicide. Charles Kiesling, the president of the Pennsylvania Coroners Association, said it best. These are not accidental deaths. They're homicides. Drug dealers are murderers. They need to be prosecuted as murderers. A homicide is defined as the death of an individual at the hands of another. You're killing people if you're selling drugs. I am hopeful that our advocacy will initiate new laws and protocols nationwide, ridding our communities of the criminals peddling poison for profit. We will continue to advocate towards the paradigm shift of thinking by law enforcement officers and prosecutors away from past protocol of classifying these lethal poisonings as non-criminal to now prosecutable homicides. A huge thank you to Alexander Neville's mom, Amy, for organizing this event and the countless supporters advocating for change. Thank you all for being here. I came all the way from Chicago, a couple other families from Chicago, a group of families from California, so thank you so very much. And one more quick thing. This is my girl right here.